Welcome to Industrial Timber, where raw wood, steel engineering, homemade machines, and heavy-duty processing power come together in real working conditions. This DIY splitter is already far beyond the old screw-type designs. The reinforced structure gives it the strength to bite into tough, knotty logs without looking stressed. And that is what makes it interesting. Less heavy lifting for the operator, more force coming from the machine itself. Smart, practical, and clearly built by someone who understands how stubborn wood can be. Then comes one of the most aggressive splitters in the lineup. Watching it drive through giant logs and turn them into clean firewood in one motion is seriously satisfying. It is not just brute force. It is controlled power, clean alignment, and enough pressure to make even large timber look weak. A tractor-powered hydraulic splitter is a strong solution for heavy-duty firewood work. It brings serious force to the job and can handle large volumes much faster than manual splitting. But there is one catch: fuel cost. If the tractor is burning too much diesel just to run the splitter, the machine may be powerful, but the operating cost needs to make sense. Still, for anyone dealing with serious wood volume, this homemade setup is a solid piece of practical engineering. Then we move to a homemade saw system, turning rough logs into clean planks. There is something different about watching raw timber become usable lumber right in front of you. A large sharp-toothed blade, steady feed, and clean cutting motion make the whole process look almost effortless. When a saw runs smoothly like this, even a basic homemade setup starts to feel professional. But not every tree job deserves praise. Some approaches to tree felling are simply questionable. The setup here leaves a lot to criticize in terms of safety, control, and basic practicality. When a tree has weight, lean, and stored tension, careless cutting is not creative. It is just unnecessary risk. A more careful method should have been used from the beginning. Next, the splitter proves where it performs best. Birch, with its straighter grain, splits cleanly and makes the machine look extremely efficient. But throw in apple, elm, or twisted hardwood, and the real test begins. Straight wood is easy. Difficult grain shows whether a machine is genuinely strong or just good under ideal conditions. So the real question is simple. Would this design survive tougher timber without losing speed? Then we arrive in San Rosendo, southern Chile, a major timber movement point where forestry and transport meet. With major routes connected through the region, it becomes a key link in moving lumber across the country. That kind of infrastructure keeps the local forestry economy active and helps Chile remain competitive in the global timber market. After that, a homemade firewood processor takes the spotlight. Running on a rebuilt 55 horsepower Deutz air oil-cooled engine, this machine is built for output. At around $27,000, mounted on a 2-4-foot trailer and capable of producing around 4 cords per hour, it is not just a backyard experiment. Even with tough oak, the anti-jam saw keeps the workflow moving. That is practical engineering with real production value. Then comes a questionable professional moment that makes you wonder if everyone else has been doing it wrong or if this is just pure chaos dressed up as confidence. Sometimes field work looks clever, sometimes it just looks lucky. This one feels closer to the second category. Homemade log splitters can be impressive, but safety still matters. Turning a backyard into a mini firewood station sounds useful, but spinning parts, exposed blades, and loose axe-style components can turn dangerous fast. Securing the axe and reversing the motor direction for safer operation are not small improvements. They are the difference between a clever machine and a bad accident waiting to happen. Then a roller chipper gets connected to an Ursus C330, creating a simple but effective wood chipping setup. The PTO handles the workload smoothly, giving consistent performance whether the job is in the forest, on a farm, or in landscaping. It is not flashy, but it works. And in industrial timber, reliable output beats fancy design every time. The first test of another system shows why fine-tuning matters. Smaller logs are not feeding properly, and the wheel speed is still too high. That means the machine has power, but the control is not fully dialed in yet. Adding weight inside the wheel might sound like a strange fix, But sometimes the best mechanical solutions come from direct testing, not theory. Then comes the classic debate, cone splitter versus hydraulic splitter. The cone design is simple, fast, and mechanically clever, but safety is the question people should not ignore. A machine can look efficient and still be risky if the operator has poor control near rotating force. No matter what setup is being used, the rule is the same. Stay alert, keep distance, and respect the machine. Next, old railroad parts become the foundation for a homemade wood splitter. Wooden wheels, a rail axle, and a small handcart motor running in reverse create a surprisingly effective design. It looks rough, but the concept works. That is the kind of practical invention that comes from using whatever material is available and making it serve a new purpose. With 3 kilowatts of power and a Buffered 200 gearbox using a 148 gear ratio, the machine gains serious torque and control. Add the pulley drive ratio, and suddenly this simple-looking build has enough precision and force to handle demanding wood. It is not pretty, but the mechanical logic is clear. Then the DIY rig with a crane and a 30-ton splitter shows why lifting assistance matters. Splitting huge logs by hand destroys backs and wastes time. With the crane feeding the splitter, the operator saves energy, handles bigger timber, and keeps the workflow moving. For anyone processing serious firewood volume, that kind of setup changes the whole job. The Pezolato Professional 2 takes things into a cleaner production zone. With one operator, it powers through mixed logs, whether 1 meter or 2 meters long. Every cut looks sharp, every cycle stays smooth, and the output feels controlled. That is what industrial firewood processing is supposed to look like. Steady, repeatable, efficient. Then another homemade 30-ton splitter appears, this time using a cylinder from a container truck. That is a serious reuse of heavy hydraulic hardware. The machine feels like a steel-armed lumberjack, forcing timber apart with direct pressure. If upgraded with a 1-2 way splitting blade, productivity could jump sharply, assuming the frame and hydraulic system can handle the extra load. Then the JBL log splitter enters like a full industrial weapon. 80 tons of force is not a small number, and the 2-4 way splitting wedge makes the machine look even more extreme. The side loader is a smart addition too, because feeding heavy timber is often half the battle. This is the kind of splitter that makes people stop watching casually and start studying the design. Not every good machine has to look polished. Some equipment looks rough, but works accurately, reliably, and efficiently. If it produces clean wood chips every time and keeps running without constant adjustment, then the design is doing its job. Complicated does not always mean better. The Nuss Rainer Brennholz Säge firewood saw is another example of practical engineering. A sturdy frame, precise cutting table, and multiple saw blades increase cutting capacity while reducing effort. For home users or small-scale firewood work, that kind of design makes sense. It focuses on productivity without overcomplicating the operation. Then the Halverson HWP 140B shows why hydraulic firewood processing has become so popular. Manual chopping is slow, tiring, and inconsistent. With strong hydraulics, this machine turns splitting into a faster, cleaner, easier process. Instead of fighting every log with an axe, the operator lets the machine take the punishment. Finally, the Otor 3 kilowatt splitter runs at 14 revolutions per minute with a sharp cone head built for tough stumps and serious splitting jobs. Slow rotation, controlled torque, and a hardened cone make it precise rather than chaotic. Add a clean finish with quality materials, and this becomes a strong professional style setup for people who deal with heavy wood regularly.